Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. My name is John Rogers. I'm the Chief Data and Analytics Officer for a company called Cotality. You might not have heard us. We've actually done a brand name change. We used to be called CoreLogic, but we're a lot different now from when we spun out our first American in 2011. We were basically primarily a US mortgage-only company, and now we're a multi-country, multi-industry company working around the world. And if I zoom in a little bit into the US, we literally support over a million real estate agents. That's to manage that listing, close a deal, find a new lead. I think we touch about just over 8 out of every 10 loans. So is it John Rogers? Tell me his DTI, send out an appraiser, what's the LTV? And then we touch a similar number in the insurance space, so 8 out of every 10 policies through underwriting, claims, and restoration. Indeed, we restored about 2 million homes. And because of all that, we literally collect 22,000 data sources on all things property and location. So literally think about the hundreds of millions of documents that you and I sign to point cloud data, which is satellite, aerial, drones, and structure sensors on your phone. And so I'm very fortunate. I look after that 21st century data and AI manufacturing plant that just whirs away 24/7. I look after about 300 data gurus and data scientists, and they've got brains the size of planets, so I just try and hang on to their coattails and feed them food and give them beverages. So obviously, having that truth data set on property, we work a lot with Google, and obviously we have a lot of industry SMEs. That's absolutely ripe for AI. And really, we're passionate about making every property professional even more smarter, faster, and more human-centric. So let me take you through what we're going to cover today. There's 2 halves to this. So we're going to talk about how we're protecting homes and buildings across the United States, how to make them more resilient against wildfires, floods, and so forth. And then we're going to change gears, and I'm going to show you a few demonstrations about how we're using AI for investors, real estate agents, inspectors, and so forth. Sound good? So I've got about 10, 15 minutes. Cool. So how are we protecting buildings and homes? So Dr. Selma Hepp, who's our chief economist, I'm just going to give you a little bit of the macroeconomics before we dive into how we're trying to improve things. So basically, it's a $100 trillion asset class, just a little bit under when you think about all of commercial and residential. So it's worth protecting. The hot potato of insurance premiums. So these have been rising dramatically over the last few years. You can see on the right-hand side there some of the states that are, seeing a lot, high double-digit growth in terms of insurance premiums, and indeed it's about 9%, the highest average on record of a person's outlay in terms of principal, interest, property tax, and insurance premiums. So the highest ever. So what's driving that? I'm going to go through 3 things. So we actually, we understand the cost of every single building to reconstruct it, whether commercial or residential, across the United States. So we gather, every 2x4, the cost of it, every nail, labor, engineering materials. And you can see the supply chain is causing some pressures, aluminum being the top one. So that's risen 10% just year on year, most of it coming from Canada and China, and there's an amplification effect with some of the tariffs that are happening between countries right now. Second reason, if you zoom out and look at the residential housing stock, 12% of the residential housing stock is at high risk to a hazard or peril. Think about wildfires, winter storms, hail. That's equivalent to $4.3 trillion worth of reconstruction cost. If we do nothing, and we fast forward to 2050, it's about 20% of the residential housing stock, and that's equivalent to about $7.2 trillion. If that was my fault. I saw that some of you were sleeping there, so I thought I would try that. I hope you're okay. If anyone needs to lie down, please let me know. But yeah, I'll stand over here now. I'll stand over here. So sorry about that. You might be thinking, how the hell do we know what happens in 2050? Just very quickly, we understand the financial impact of every single hazard against every single property, both today and up to the year 2050. So fortunately, I have wildfire scientists, structural engineers, pluvial scientists, and so they do amazing things. And the really key point here is once you understand the financial measure, then you can do the business case and make a home more resilient. Last macro slide, and then I'll show you some videos. So basically on the left-hand side here is the density of homes over time, and you see the dark blue areas, and interestingly enough, it's like a mirror on the right-hand side of homes in high risk. So as a society, we just like to live in high-risk areas. 1 in 6 of us live in a high wildfire risk area. In Florida, Georgia, over the last 2 decades, the increase in population is through the roof. So we just naturally, so you compound that with construction costs, hazards, that's the challenge we face. So before I go into some of the solutions about how we're trying to make homes more resilient, I'll just show you a video, and hopefully it's not too loud. And it's going back to the event in LA due to the LA wildfires.
There are a number of homes down these streets that are now gone.
We got in the car to go, and then all the cars were abandoned, so I just had to get out of my car and start walking. The smoke is so bad.
Reconstruction efforts that is going to be required to get Pacific Palisades in particular back up and running is going to be massive, and it's going to require contractors. They're going to be coming from all over the country to try to meet the demand, because there's just going to be so many structures that need to be remediated and fixed, even ones that you can't tell from the outside.
So you might have seen that gentleman, Garrett Gray. So he heads up our insurance group, and he actually lives in that area. And he's got a pretty, if you ever hear him speak, he's got a pretty heart-thumping story, because his kids were in school, and everything was gridlocked to get there. So they're literally running to try and get their kids out of school. So thankfully, his family's okay. But during these kinds of events, basically Cotality becomes a 24/7 operation, and we help, as you can imagine, federal agencies, state agencies, obviously insurers, utility companies, nursing homes, finding land to, and houses to house displaced families and so forth. So it's obviously it's a tragic event. One of the questions is, how can we make things better? So I'm just going to go through 3 examples. So the first is, if that's working, is how the science is getting better. So this was obviously a wildfire event when you actually look at the housing stock, especially in the Palisades, 60% of that housing stock was built before 1960. So in actual fact, the wildfire risk within that area was quite low. You can see the two houses there. You see the wildfire risk score of 22 and the wildfire risk score of 6. It was fairly low. One of the reasons, well, the big reasons why that was such a tragic event is the building-to-building fire. So it's called urban conflagration, and that's what caused the problem. So you can see these two particular properties. There was a grocery outlet and a single-family home there. Completely different scores on the conflagration. This was basically a wildfire-hardened house, property, sorry. So this is helping insurers understand risk, and even more importantly, for homeowners to protect their home. And I'll touch on that in 2 slides' time. The second part is how to build resilient communities. So just to give you one example, the fire back in 2018 in the Paradise, an awful event. We worked with several groups and companies to put together the blueprint of how to rebuild that community. And in doing so, that blueprint would reduce the wildfire risk by up to 75% and insurance premiums by over 50%. 3 reasons for it: a hardened home based on IBHS standards, how you replan the build of that city, so you build in low-density areas, you have fire breaks, and then how you think about the perimeter around that community. And so we can rebuild things safely. And then finally, we work with the hot potato of insurance premiums. We work with the California Department of Insurance, and we use image analytics across every single home to understand the resiliency factors in that house. So in other words, a certain type of roof material, closed eaves, no flammable material within 5 feet, your fence is 12 foot away. We send that signal to the insurer. The insurer comes and reaches out to John Rogers, and we can lower insurance premiums by over 20%. And so we're beginning to roll this out to every single area within the United States based on the pertinent peril. And just final slide on this, just to kind of hit the point home. Here's 2 areas in Florida and Georgia. So Gadsden County in Florida, Seminole County in Georgia. And basically, even though the county in Georgia is further away from the ocean, further away from, obviously, incoming hurricanes, its risk factor is 6 times different to the hardened homes in Florida. Florida often has, they kind of rotate between them and Virginia, the best mandated and enforced building codes. And we can measure the improvement over time. Cool. I will switch gears on you. And now we're going to talk about making property professionals AI superheroes. AI is moving at an amazing pace. It's both amazing and overwhelming. If you think about it, large language models have improved in accuracy just in this year by 67%. Over the last 3 years, their prices have dropped 280 times. So how can we harness this and make it usable for every property professional across the industry? And at Cotality, we're very fortunate. We support about 2 million property professionals across the United States, from agents to lenders to investors, right across the board. Is that, keep going. And for some reason, I think it's stuck. All right. Okay, no worries. Let me, my thumb is getting strong. Sorry about that. It's, okay, it's there's actually 2 million boxes. But, I'm joking. Here we go. Cool. First one. Real estate agent. When you put together a listing, it takes you normally about an hour to put that listing together. This is now rolled out to our population of MLSs that we support, about 520. And now you can do it in less than 5 minutes. So literally taking pictures, talking to it, writing a few notes, and it will identify and create the listing in a few minutes, which is great for the real estate agent for two reasons, because basically they want to close deals, that's what they want to concentrate on, and secondly, just work-life balance, so you don't have to get bunged up with all the admin. So here, they're just adding some notes on some things that they want to highlight. We're going to talk about renovations, and then if I can remember correctly, you can even change it into Spanish. But this is basically in real time, so it actually takes about 90 seconds. So that's been, we were in beta mode in the first half of the year, and now we're rolling this out to all the real estate agents. Cool. The second example is applicable to a lot of different personas across the ecosystem. And hopefully, is this going to move? Fantastic. This is basically doing a 3D model with your phone using LiDAR technology. So we're using this with real estate agents, home inspectors, appraisers, and we'll roll out into insurance adjusters next year. So again, just what's using your iPhone or your Android, you can move around the property, pick up the information, and obviously it'll generate a floor plan in the real estate space. And it's just very fast and very accurate. It's pretty amazing what's on your cell phone these days. Also, we do a lot of work with satellite and aerial companies, so you can imagine we are now on the path to getting a digital twin for every single structure in the United States. I think this finishes off just by Matrix is our operating system for all real estate agents, and so all million that will use this, and then this is just basically integrated into their work and into their workflow, making them faster and smarter. I'm going to go to something different. This is a sneak peek, so please don't tell anyone. This is in research and development. So this is our, if you like, our Bloomberg terminal. You can look at everything from market position to find new leads, to understand risk in your portfolio. But the key thing is, how do you ask any question about housing data? And if you know a wee bit about large language models, works great on documents and words and so forth. It's basically a next word predictor. Not so good on wide hundreds of tables. So this is, we're well onto solving and cracking that code. This is, I'm pretending to be an investor, and I'm doing research and finding out about local areas. I think we're in Addison, Texas. That's 75001. Part of my job is to know all 42,000 zip codes. So this is, Ali is our digital assistant. And so we'll be rolling this out in Q1 next year. And if I'm sure there's a few technology companies in the audience, we'd love to share notes, because this is a hard one to crack, to get the accuracy. Cool. I've got two more very quick demos, and then I'll hand back to Lance. Underneath the covers, Cotality is actually really a geospatial company. And this first part, I'm just going to give you a bit. We have something called CLIP, which is our property identifier. So that basically glues together 215 million addresses in the United States that sit on 176 million structures that sit on about 151 million parcels. And there's about 250,000 to 500,000 changes per quarter. What you see here is just that visual. That's our, in Irvine, that's our head office. So you see all the red dots are the addresses, 3 structures on 1 parcel. The question is, so what? here's one of the things. So we can actually identify growth in the United States before it occurs. So we work with city planners, retailers, data center tech companies. And so what this is going to show you is, obviously there's some obvious areas in terms of subdivision and permitting, but it will also show other areas of potential growth. So we work across the industry helping companies invest large amounts of capital for the future. And I've got 17 seconds left, and I'll show you one more thing. We work with a geospatial company called Carto. And this is basically, imagine I'm a retailer, and I want to talk to the data to understand growth areas, and this is in Houston and around the Texas area. One, where are growth areas? Where is my audience? And how should I grow, and where do I need to grow in the future? So, I'm 15 seconds over. I hope that gives you an idea of how AI is actually helping us become superheroes, not replace us. And if you'd like to catch up afterwards, we'd love to talk. So thank you so much indeed.
Thank you, John.